Hi, welcome to this busy Friday news night. Joe Biden once said, and I quote, "When a woman alleges sexual assault, presume she is telling the truth." Needless to say, Biden has now done a complete 180. We'll call out the rampant hypocrisy coming up and a new allegation tonight as we come on the air this Friday night. Also, big news on the Durham Bar probe. Jay Sekulow, Flynn attorney Sidney Powell, they will join us. They will update us. Also tonight, how is it even possible the colossal fail, epic fail of New York City and state, the worst case of coronavirus, and they did everything wrong? Rudy Giuliani will weigh in our investigation tonight. Also, frustrated Americans all across the country, you're seeing it everywhere, they're now beginning to revolt against the lockdown. Wait till we see the beaches in Huntington this weekend in California, as 33 states now are in the process of lifting restrictions and opening up, and at least one professional sports league is only days away from returning to action. There is hope there. We'll have more in just moments. But first, we do turn to our top story, the hypocrisy, the deceit that is the modern extreme Democratic Radical Socialist Party. Now, for weeks, Joe Biden, well, he has done his best to ignore sexual assault allegations levied against him by a former staffer. Her name is Tara Reade, too graphic to repeat on television. I guess Mika did it, but we won't. Anyway, already today, top Democrats across the country have tried to give Biden cover with glowing endorsements. The mob, the media, they asked him not one single question about the Reade allegation. The I believers were nowhere to be found and still are. And after a mountain of corroborating evidence emerged in this case surrounding Reade's allegations, the media was guilted into covering the story, and Biden was finally forced to answer serious questions about the accusations. And I do tip my hat. I think Mika did a good job. Take a look.
To use your words, should we not start off with the presumption that the essence of what she's talking about is real? She says you sexually assaulted her.
Look, from the very beginning, I've said believing women means taking the woman's claims seriously. When she steps forward and then vet it, look into it. That's true in this case as well. Women have a right to be heard, and the press should rigorously investigate claims they make. I'll always uphold that principle. But in the end, in every case, the truth is what matters. And in this case, the truth is the claims are false.
All right, is the left now, are they going to treat Biden the way they treated Kavanaugh? Will they now demand an investigation? Will they say, I believe her, the way they did with the Kavanaugh accusers, even though they didn't have half the corroboration? They didn't have any, actually, nor did they have a police report, nor did they have a haunting call from the mother of any of the accusers. Are they going to comb through Biden's decades-old yearbooks from high school like they did Kavanaugh? Will they call for him to step down as their party's nominee? Will they say, I believe, in this case, Tara Reade, because that's what they demanded in the Kavanaugh case without any corroborating evidence whatsoever. In the Reade case, she has it. She has witnesses. She has the mother's phone call. She filed a report. But at the very least, if Joe has nothing to hide and he really wants to be transparent like he says he does and get to the truth like he says he wants, he can just release all the personnel files on Tara Reade. Now, they are reportedly stored at the University of Delaware with Biden's Senate records. Now, we know his staff was in there already. Biden doesn't seem interested in that level of transparency. Speaks volumes. Take a look.
Why not approve a search of her name in those records?
Approve a search of her name?
Yes, and reveal anything that might be related to Tara Reade in the University of Delaware records.
There is nothing. They wouldn't. They're not there. And if it's I don't understand the point you're trying to make.
Nothing classified with the president or anybody else. I'm just asking, why not do a search for Tara Reade's name in the University of Delaware records?
Look, I mean, who does that search?
Joe's kind of seems like he's hiding something or maybe just malfunctioning as usual. Now, we all know he's not working with a fastball or even a curve. And I don't even think he has a soft pitch at this point, for that matter. It's actually really hard to watch. But when you remember, as Grabian.com pointed out just a few months ago, Biden was promoting himself as a champion of all victims. Rampant hypocrisy, just like with quid and pro and quo and zero experience Hunter, and you're not getting the billion. Take a look.
The woman should be given the benefit of the doubt and not be abused again by the system. So why do you think women who get raped, so many don't report it? They don't want to get raped again by the system. It's all about the abuse of power, number one. Number two, women should be believed. No man has a right to lay a hand on a woman, no matter what she's wearing, what she does, who she is. Unless you can affirmatively give consent, it's rape. Unless you affirmatively consent, anybody engaged in that behavior is committing a crime. So much has changed about how the public understands the pressure on women. And I've learned a lot as well, too.
There's a Class A hypocrite. What happened, Joe? Do you no longer believe that women should be given the benefit of the doubt now that it's you on the other side of this? What about the, allegations, 7 or 8 of them against you already? And what about the endless stream of creepy footage of you, getting way too close to just about every female you can in sight? Is this really the champion for women? That Democratic Party, is that the one they're going to nominate, really? As it turns out, most Democrats never really seem to care about the issue, because if they did, they would either take our position, which is the presumption of innocence, take it seriously, look at the facts, let people decide. That's the way, it works in this society. But if you're a Republican and conservative, I believe you're a Democrat, silence. They were just using it as a political weapon, weren't they, in the Kavanaugh case and against Trump. The hypocrisy probably never been worse than this. Take a look.
I believe Dr. Ford, and to me, Judge Kavanaugh has shown so clearly he does not have the temperament or credibility to serve on the Supreme Court.
The courage she showed was remarkable. Dr. Ford's testimony was credible and compelling. I believe Dr. Ford.
Not only do women like Dr. Ford, who bravely comes forward, need to be heard, but they need to be believed.
I believe Dr. Ford. I believe the survivor here. There's every reason to believe her.
I believe Professor Ford. I think she's credible.
And Nancy Pelosi, she's going to the mat for Biden. Today, we reached out to, dozens of Democratic I Believer lawmakers for a response. Not one person had anything supportive to say about Tara Reade, not a single one. Most didn't even get back to us. The I Believers in the Democratic Party, they've conveniently evaporated into thin air and utterly taking in breathtaking hypocrisy, just like with the quid and the pro and the quo and pretty much everything else. If you're a Democrat, you're a liberal, you get a pass. If you're a conservative, you get bludgeoned to death. This is especially true of Pelosi. Let's look at her.
You demanded a investigation on Justice Kavanaugh when a very similar allegation came out on him.
Well, let me just say, I respect your question, and I don't need a lecture or a speech.
We're here to show our solidarity. We're here to show our respect for all women who have a case, have it respected, for due process, to investigate.
There's a lot of excitement around the idea that women will be heard and be listened to.
The crimes themselves, the allegations that have been made are about offenses that have a lifetime impact.
There is also due process, and the fact that Joe Biden is Joe Biden.
Instead of asking questions, the Republican leadership fears the truth.
There was never any record of this. There was never any record.
Really? They're so afraid of the truth, and they're so afraid of a woman, Dr. Christine Blasey Ford, for the truth that she will tell.
Breathtaking groupthink hypocrisy. Democratic Party, they only care about power. We're consistent here. We believe in the presumption of innocence and that you're innocent until proven guilty. But take it seriously, sure. Everybody should. It's important. And the worst part, the mob, the media, actively assisting them every step of the way. As late as September 2019, WAPO, yes, Eric Pimple's paper, the Washington Post, they were still plotting Kavanaugh's demise. One headline reading, quote, "While calls for Justice Kavanaugh's impeachment are mounting, here's how it could work." And here's how the Post covered the accusations against Biden. Developments in the allegations against Biden amplify efforts to question his behavior. What does that even mean? Meanwhile, the New York Toilet Paper Times actually worked with the Biden campaign to remove language about Biden's misconduct from one of their articles. Wow, hand in hand, they work together. And now one devout Democrat pretending to be a news host just said that Reid's allegations were part of a right-wing smear campaign. Really? When in doubt, blame the conservatives. Take a look.
The right isn't running an intellectually honest operation to get to the bottom of whether Tara Reid was victimized. The right is running a smear campaign against Joe Biden.
That's it. Okay, Nicole, if you say so, you, Steve Schmidt, and Joe, we'll listen to all that. And for the mob and the media, their partners in the Democratic Party, because that's state-run conspiracy TV television, right? Let's be honest. You know, politics comes first. For them, it's not about principles, not about victims' rights, not about, well, due process or Constitution. They don't seem to care about any of that, the presumption of innocence. The only one thing they care about is power and winning. That's it, and control of your life. Now, we are 186 days away, and you are the ultimate jury. The choice is going to be clear. You will decide the fate of this great republic. And by the way, no hyperbole, everything, including our way of life, hanging in the balance. Here with reaction, Fox News contributors Tammy Bruce, Dan Bongino, along with Fox News correspondent at large, Geraldo Rivera. Dan, I heard you've been dead on, hardcore, right, accurate on all of this. I don't even know what to say anymore, except it's groupthink psychosis. Maybe some think the ends justify the means, I don't know, but it's not healthy.
No, it's not, Sean. And, you know, liberals and their media acolytes have exposed themselves as complete, utter frauds with these Biden allegations. Listen, there are times we get things right. Sometimes we get things wrong. All of us, obviously, we're all sinners. We all make mistakes. But the media and their liberal buddies were clear on Kavanaugh, Sean, what the standard was. They were crystal clear. Women, all women are to be believed, and they deserve to be believed. Conservatives were very cautious about that. They said women deserve to be heard. This is very serious, these accusations. But, Sean, evidence deserves to be believed. And what Ms. Blasey Ford produced was anti-evidence. She produced witnesses who said, I didn't say that or I didn't see that. Now Tara Reid comes forward. We know actually worked with Joe. We don't even know Christine Blasey Ford met Brett Kavanaugh. We know she worked there, produces verifiable facts that she worked there, produces evidence, the phone call and these other people she spoke to. And what happens? Liberals completely disappear totally. We warned you about the danger of this. And you know what? They'll retcon it anyway. The minute they want to accuse a conservative, they'll do it and they'll pretend like none of this happened. They'll be back to all women have to be believed.
You know, and the great difference here, Geraldo, if you're going to look at just the facts, okay, she has corroborating witnesses, one after another after another. That phone call from her mom, I keep using the word haunting because I can't come up with a better word, because that's what it is. It's like her mom coming to her defense from beyond and saying, yeah, this happened to my daughter. And she was upset enough, at least, to call Larry King. That's the professor didn't have it. Julie Swetnick didn't have it. None of the Kavanaugh accusers had it.
You know, I started, Sean, my legal career in the DA's office. What we always looked for was contemporaneous corroboration. That phone call from the mom is, you say it is a voice from the grave. It is exactly contemporaneous corroboration. From 1993, from her home in San Luis Obispo, here's mom speaking out to Larry King. That is very, very difficult. I don't know what Joe Biden expected this morning. Maybe he expected a softball. He got beat up by Mika Brzezinski with a baseball bat. She single-handedly took Me Too out of the presidential election, assuming Joe Biden is still the nominee. He's got a long road, a hole to dig out of now, because these are very powerful allegations, and they have the stink of truth.
Your take, Tammy.
Well, first of all, it's a pleasure to crash the Dan and Geraldo segment. So thank you, fellas. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure.
You're very welcome. You're welcome.
And look, when it comes to the reason this is happening, they're misogynists on the left. Women are fodder, and they are expendable. During the Kavanaugh hearing, women were infantilized, and Americans were effectively told, you have to believe them now because I guess they can't withstand scrutiny. In this case, a woman is invisible. She is dismissed. She is thrown away. She is trash. And Mika Brzezinski did do a good job, but here's how sad the media situation is. Mika did her job. She did a basic job of a journalist, continuing to ask questions. With the exception of this network and Fox Business, our sister network, it is so rare she is being hailed as a hero. And I was impressed because she's expressed her admiration for Joe Biden. But the fact of the matter is that there was several unforced errors in what he did, including saying he didn't want the University of Delaware papers released because they have private conversations with heads of state when he was a senator that might be used against him. Heads of state like Putin, he said, that might be used against him in the presidential race. And he also said, well, he refused to answer the one question that she didn't follow up on, which I found strange, which was whether or not he remembered her. Now, consider if he says he doesn't remember her, then every other recollection he would claim would have to be considered suspicious. So he's in a very difficult position. The Democrats, they know what they're doing, and they do not care, and they are singularly responsible for the most damage to women's civil rights and quality of life in this country for the last 2 generations. Tara Reid the other day said, where is Gloria Steinem? This is a Democrat feminist, Tara Reid. Where is Gloria Steinem? Where are the other feminists? Well, they are hiding because they're being found out that they're a fraud, and she means nothing to them. Every American woman needs to know this is a nonpartisan issue, and the moment it became partisan by the Democrats, taking women seriously became a farce.
All right, guys. Well, you did crash them. I don't know. I think this might be a trio now. We're moving in a new direction. All right. Thank you all. Tammy, Dan, Geraldo. Now, also tonight, more sad, predictable news. The mob, the media, that, just listen to this question that they asked the president's brand new press secretary, Kayleigh McEnany. Take a look.
Kayleigh, welcome. Since it's been more than 100 days since the press secretary stood up there, I wanted to get a better sense of what your plan is. Are you planning to do these on a daily basis at this point? And also, will you pledge never to lie to us from that podium?
I will never lie to you. You have my word on that.
I want to know when they're going to stop lying to all of us. How about that? Because you know what? And you know what, Kayleigh, congratulations on the new position. They will turn on you. It won't take very long at all. If I put up a board, I could probably pick the exact date, sadly, but good job. Congratulations on your new position. Now, so they're willing to insinuate McEnany's a liar. They're the liars. They've lied for 3.5 years. They have groupthink, hate Trump psychosis, and they'll give any Democrat, especially Biden, a pass. It's clear the mob, the media, the Democrats are trying really hard to sweep Tara Reid's allegation under the rug. Now, keep in mind, I can't emphasize this enough. Now, these are the same people that tried to destroy Kavanaugh's life, from things he did back in high school. And by the way, they wanted to remove him as a Supreme Court justice, wanted a nomination to go sideways. And they played every dirty trick in the book, as they always do. Senator Graham put it, Democrats put Kavanaugh through hell on earth. He was right then. Take a look.
You're looking for a fair process? You came to the wrong town at the wrong time, my friend. Do you consider this a job interview?
The advice and consent role is like a job interview.
You consider that you've been through a job interview?
I've been through a process of advice and consent under the Constitution.
Would you say you've been through hell?
I've been through hell and then some.
This is not a job interview.
Yeah.
This is hell.
This
is going to destroy the ability of good people to come forward because of this crap.
It was more on their rampant, reckless hypocrisy. South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham. Senator, one of your finest moments in the Senate. Where are all the I believers? I don't see any I believers. Have you seen any I believers? They're in hiding the I believers. I believe I'm missing in action now.
Yeah. Every Senate Judiciary Democrat believed Dr. Ford. Here's what I believe. Something happened to Dr. Ford. She's had a troubled past. Brett Kavanaugh, in my view, had nothing to do with it. Paula Jones, we've come a long way from Paula Jones. Remember when Carville said, this is what you get when you take a $100 bill through the trailer park? I believed every woman in the Bill Clinton case, Kathleen Willey, Juanita Broderick, Paula Jones. I did not believe that Brett Kavanaugh had anything to do with the Miss Ford situation, and the other 4 complaints were all garbage. I've known Joe Biden for 20 years. I've traveled the world with him. I've never seen him do anything untoward toward a woman. I've never heard anything about him being inappropriate. That's my view of Joe Biden. Miss Reed, she has a right to be heard, and we'll see where this goes. But to my Democratic friends,
she has corroboration, though.
If you believe Ms. Ford, why don't you believe? Yeah, right.
Wait a minute.
Well, that's my point.
But
neither my Democratic friends.
Nobody in the Kavanaugh case had the corroboration, the witnesses, the call from the mother, and a report filed.
Right.
Well, Tara Reid has all of that.
That's my point. Right.
Go ahead.
I'm just saying that Joe Biden, I know, I've never seen him believe that he would do anything like this until you convince me otherwise. But I think you should reveal the records. But is there a double standard? Of course. Do most Republicans understand what happened to Brett Kavanaugh was not about trying to right a wrong against Dr. Ford? It's about trying to keep a seat open so they could fill it if they could beat Trump. I mean, they were dumb enough to say that. I hope Miss Reid gets treated better than the women during the Clinton years. I hope for sure she gets treated better than they did.
Well, yeah, hope so, but it's not going to happen. Quick update. We saw what happened with General Flynn, and we're going to get into the Durham bar issue in a minute. Where do you see this going? Because my sources pretty loud saying that.
Right. So here's where it's going. The Senate Intel Committee looked at all things Russia regarding the 2016 election. The Senate Judiciary Committee is going to look at all things Department of Justice. We're going to investigate the investigators. By the fall, I hope to have a report trying to explain how the Department of Justice abused the law. I want to hear from Andrew Weissman why he believed that anybody in the Trump campaign was working with the Russians by June of 2017.
Unbelievable.
I want to know, why did it take 2 years?
Great questions. Senator Graham, we're going to watch all of it very closely. There are huge developments on all of these fronts, and when we come back, we'll get an update. What is going on? Why is the U.S. Attorney John Durham hiring more staff? What is the status of the investigation? I would say there's a lot of TikToks going on out there. We'll check in with Jay Sekulow, Sidney Powell, the attorney for General Flynn, and later, Americans all across this country, they are beginning to rebel against the state-issued lockdown orders. It is real, it is big, and it is now, well, kind of exploding nationwide. Trace has a report straight ahead. Now the explosive new documents exposing the FBI's effort to frame Michael Flynn. General Flynn is also renewing attention on the Durham probe. As a new report from Fox News says, the Attorney General, and that would be Bill Barr, he is talking to Durham, quote, every day. And multiple sources telling Fox News that Durham is expected to wrap up his investigation into the Russia probe and the origins by the end of the summer. Joining us now with reaction, he is the chief counsel for the American Center for Law and Justice and the president's attorney and friend and also lawyer of mine. Jay Sekulow is with us. All right, let's get to this issue. I have stated, Jay, and I believe to this day, that if we allow those that abuse power, those that committed premeditated fraud on a FISA court, if I deleted and acid washed my hard drive with bleach bit, I think I'd be held in obstruction. If I was warned that a dossier is unverified and we find out it's unverifiable and they used it for a full year, I don't think, as great an attorney as you are, that I would survive. I think I would end up in jail. But maybe you could get me off, but people have been waiting for justice, Jay.
Yeah, and justice is happening. And I think you started to see that because the Attorney General and the U.S. Attorney John Durham are following the law, following the facts, determining what is evidence that could be utilized if there was, in fact, legal violations of law, which clearly there have been here. And then you take it a step further, and who then is responsible? We saw, and we talked about this yesterday, Sean, that the abuse that took place within the FBI and the Office of Special Counsel, Bob Mueller's office, is unprecedented in U.S. history. We've never seen anything like it. The fact you just talked about evidence being wiped out of BleachBit or wiped out emails. How about the investigator and the lawyer, both within the Office of Special Counsel, working for Bob Mueller, allowed senior officials with the FBI, allowed their phones to be wiped clean. In other words, destruction of evidence under the watch of the special counsel. Now, if you did that, if I did that, if anyone else did that, it would be a violation of federal law. It'd be a crime. But what happens here? Well, they just say, Bob Mueller says he wasn't aware that it happened, which points to the problem of why this whole special counsel nonsense was exactly that, nonsense. But they allowed the destruction of evidence to take place, Sean. So now what you're seeing is a real U.S. attorney and a real attorney general of the United States doing what they do, equal justice under the law. Those that violate the law, where there is evidence sufficient to prove that in court, they will be prosecuted. That is what an attorney general, that's what U.S. attorneys do. We're starting to see that now. And the reports about increased activity, I think there's been ongoing activity. A lot of what happens by the Justice Department or during an investigation is not necessarily seen by the public. That's always the way it is.
We now know everybody was warned, Jay, about the dirty dossier. And Steele erased his emails now, apparently. Yep. And Steele had contact with the DNC and with Hillary's contacts, people in her campaign. We know that's the case. We know it's premeditated fraud on a FISA court. And there, I listened to the little crumbs that the Attorney General puts out. They spied deep into the Trump administration. They denied people their civil rights and civil liberties and constitutional rights. And then they kept going. Now, that's a problem, Jay. And there's a whole other avenue of spying that we haven't discussed, which would involve the intelligence agencies.
Well, this whole matter of a counterintelligence investigation and false and fraudulent statements made to the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court so that a fraud was committed by lawyers. Knowingly, willfully, wantingly, and it took place, and then FISA warrants were issued that never should have been. So that's the FISA warrant problem, which is a whole separate issue as it relates to the impact of whether it's on General Flynn or particularly what has also happened and what this president of the United States has had to put up with for 3 years. And you mentioned the Steele dossier. Let's not forget that the sourcing on that and the information sharing on that was between Christopher Steele and Bruce Orr, who was the number 4 at the Department of Justice at the time. And his wife, Bruce Orr's wife, worked for Fusion GPS on issues related to Russia. You cannot make this up. I mean, you'd have to sell this as a fiction story, but unfortunately, it was the reality that I've been dealing with, and more importantly, what the president's had to deal with for 3 years. But the light is being shown now.
It's an attempted coup, Jay. That's what they tried.
It was.
And they abused power. It was. All right. We'll watch it closely. Jay, thank you. Now, the new documents in the Michael Flynn case expose how the FBI weaponized law enforcement resources to engineer a crime and destroy a 33-year veteran of this country, General Michael Flynn. They never thought he was a Russian agent. They weren't actually concerned with the Logan Act, as nobody has ever been found guilty of violating that law since 1799. All they cared about was, well, destroying Donald Trump. Anyone who dared to challenge the deep state in Washington. Here with reaction is Michael Flynn's attorney, Sidney Powell. I know some have been saying, well, the president now has every right to fire and, to pardon Michael Flynn. I want the judge in this case Emmett Sullivan to vacate this guilty agreement. Because now we know that they didn't think he was lying. Now we know that the case was closed. Now we know that, I'll read the words again, that, well, what is our goal? Truth, admission, or to get him to lie? When is the FBI in the business of getting people to lie so that they, quote, can prosecute him or get him fired? Sydney, that would be, to me, perjury trap. That would be abuse of power. That's corruption to me.
Oh, it's the worst corruption of all, Sean, because the people who are supposed to enforce our laws actually broke them themselves. They abused their most trusted positions to commit criminal offenses against one of the most honorable men the country has ever seen. It's absolutely atrocious, and it will, I believe, be punished with criminal prosecutions, as it should be, for conspiracy, obstruction of justice, obstruction of Congress, false statements, perjury. A lot of evidence exists in just the few pages they've disclosed to us in the past 15 days. Judge Sullivan should and must exonerate General Flynn, hopefully on the Department of Justice's own motion, because that would be the right thing to do. And the American people need to stand up and demand it.
Well, I agree. What about all these other issues? Premeditated fraud on a FISA court. What about the outsourcing of spying to circumvent American law, to spy on the American people to friendly countries? What about Misfoot? And what about Halper? And what about what they did to Papadopoulos and what they did with their raid in the Manafort case, or their raid 29 guys in tactical gear with Roger Stone for a process crime that the Inspector General thought that Comey and McCabe needed to be referred on?
Well, we're now seeing why the investigation is and has been taking as long as it has. This is wide and it is deep. It involves multiple federal agencies, multiple people at each of the federal agencies, all the way up to the White House.
Oh, what did Joe and Barack know and Rice know and let's see, Loretta Lynch know, and when did they know it? Why did Susan Rice go back 2 weeks later?
The White House is running
Barack
all of
said
this.
do everything by the book.
Remember those tweets? Yep, remember those tweets. The White House is running this. He wants to know everything.
That is correct. That would be the struck page. They want to know everything. Every step of the way. Sydney, you've been doing a great job. And by the way, there is a website if you want to help out General Flynn. He's been railroaded. We were right the whole time. Sad it could happen in this country, but it did. All right, coming up, Americans starting to rebel against the lockdown orders. Trace Gallagher with that report and much more. And Rudy Giuliani weighs in on the disaster. Every single wrong, horrible decision that New York City and state could make. The state's draconian lockdown orders. Here now, live from our West Coast newsroom on this Friday night, is our own Trace Gallagher. I wonder what Huntington Beach is going to look like, because the Orange County Sheriff doesn't seem like he's going to do anything that Gavin Newsom wants him to do. And I don't think the people of Huntington Beach are going to listen if last weekend was any sign of where they're headed.
No,
it's like they're headed to the beach.
Yeah, we saw that today, Sean. California Governor Gavin Newsom isn't just getting pushback from citizens now. City and county officials are also challenging the governor's decision to close the beaches. Today, several hundred protesters on and around Huntington Beach said the governor was overreaching. And the Huntington Beach City Council plans to file an injunction arguing that the governor's order is unconstitutional. And if you go down the coast, the feeling is very much mutual, with city leaders in Newport Beach and Dana Point also pursuing litigation. And the Orange County Sheriff, as you say, Sean, says his department will not enforce beach closures. Though today a judge ruled against Orange County by refusing to block the governor's order. But even Gavin Newsom is now indicating that he plans to ease beach restrictions in the coming days. Meantime, while the protests in Michigan continue to roll through the capital city, and while the Michigan economy is in dire straits, Governor Gretchen Whitmer says making up the budget shortfall will include some, quote, tough decisions and require, quote, flexibility. Political experts and local media translate that to mean that she is considering raising taxes for the children, of course. And finally, President Trump has a message for Governor Whitmer, saying she should, quote, give a little and put out the fire and make a deal with those protesting the stay-at-home lockdown orders. Sean.
All right, Trace Gallagher, thank you. And the protest to reopen America is far from over, with planned for tomorrow. It's all around the country. Look at this. They're all protesting. Also tonight, the Attorney General is signaling that it is, quote, time to start rolling back coronavirus restrictions. People around the world are finding clever, really smart way. Look at this. I think that now I'm going to say I was probably wrong with Governor Kemp in Georgia. Because when they said they're opening salons and tattoo parlors, I'm like, meh. But when I saw this, I said, hey. Then I started asking doctors. They're dividing. They're doing the same thing in restaurants. You know, someone can get their nails done. You put it underneath but there's a division. Everyone has a mask on. Clever, smart. I like the ingenuity. And health people I'm talking to are cautiously optimistic about it. Hong Kong, there are sit-down restaurants. People can have their orders taken and even sit down at tables completely surrounded. Look at this. By plastic dividers. I'll take that over the way we're living now. And it's fascinating. And in Mississippi, which never had a full lockdown order like New York, they opened up many businesses this past Monday. Salons, barbershops remain closed. Governor expected to make an announcement on those kinds of restrictions on Monday. Here with more is the Mississippi State Governor. Tate Reeves is with us. Look, it's obviously there are geographical, the density of the population in New York, different situation. Understand. I like the ingenuity of people thinking of ways to open restaurants, salons. I think we could probably, even Dr. Fauci said, stadiums, hopefully sooner than later. Like for me, I'll wear a mask, Governor. You know what? I don't want to, but I don't want to get anyone sick either. I'm a pretty healthy guy.
Well, thank you, Sean, for having me on, and thanks for what you do for America. I will tell you, when I hear of some of these far-left states like California shutting down beaches for extended periods of time, we had to shut down on beaches because my local officials asked me to for a couple of weeks because New Orleans is less than 30 miles from our state line. But we have been back open on beaches because what you find, if you look at the science and you look at the data, there's very little transmission in large open-air areas, and our people are smart enough to do the right thing. They're staying 5 or 6 feet apart. They're not getting in groups of more than 10 people. But you cannot lock people in their homes and tell them you can't go to work. And oh, by the way, you can't go outside either. It just doesn't work in America. And people are getting frustrated, and we're trying to do more. And we need to do more to get more and more of our businesses open.
Listen, I look, for example, you got to look at numbers. The person that screwed up, New York is a disaster. Rudy Giuliani will join us on what a disaster in a minute. Then you look at Michigan, a disaster, an utter disaster. Then I look at Florida. Ron DeSantis took heat for the kids, but he very wisely is teaching the country a lesson. He let the beaches stay open most of the time. Said if you're from New York, stay home for a while. That was a good call on his part. That means I can't even go visit, which I didn't take it personally, Governor DeSantis, but his numbers were so drastically low, and he kept the beaches open so people can walk at a distance. Smart. Why don't we learn from the smart people?
Well, that's right. Well, we've talked to Governor DeSantis and Governor Kemp in Georgia and Governor Ivey in Alabama and Governor Lee in Tennessee, and what's happening in the South is very different than what's happening in the Northeast, and that's because we governors listened to President Trump. We knew that President Trump was guiding us. He was giving us good advice. We listened to the experts, and our economies are getting moving again.
You. And honestly, Governor, I can tell you, New York, state government, governor, mayor, March 2nd, go out on the town, the mayor de Blasio saying. They weren't prepared for anything. Trump bailed them out. I will say I think it's very smart. Thank you, Governor. Congratulations to you, and our best to all the people in the great state of Mississippi. Thank you. And by the way, for the people that are showing up at these events, and you're going into government buildings, no bigger proponent than the Second Amendment than yours truly, right here. I had a carrier permit my whole adult life. You don't need to bring big firearms into that situation. Kind of trying to be intimidating. Law enforcement is there. People get hot. Let's just keep the conversation tight. That's it. It's a fair discussion. Have it. We just need to be careful. All right, Governor Andrew Cuomo, New York City Mayor de Blasio, they were not prepared for this pandemic in any way, shape, manner, or form. What they did to the elderly population in New York is unconscionable. A New York State directive puts still contagious coronavirus patients into nursing homes. Thankfully, finally, New York is abandoning the stupidity and some of the dumb, awful parts of that policy on top of putting COVID-19 patients in nursing homes when they had a hospital ship converted for COVID patients, 3,000-bed hospital manned by somebody else. waiting to help them that they barely used. 182 patients. That's all that ever went on board the Navy hospital ship Comfort. Javits Center was never halfway full. New York's Health Commissioner Howard Zucker continues to come under fire. New York Post editorial board dubbing him Dr. Death. Here with reaction, former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani. They didn't buy the ventilators in the city. They didn't buy them in the state that their own health commissions said they would need peak week. They didn't buy them. It's after 9/11. They literally were telling us March 2nd, de Blasio saying, go out on the town. March 10th, it's safe. Yes, it's okay. March 2nd, Governor Cuomo, we're arrogant New Yorkers, and it's not going to happen in New York, and we're prepared. They weren't prepared. Donald Trump saved their backsides. All that said, then they put the order to send the sickest people into nursing homes screaming, we can't care for these people, when they had the beds Donald Trump built and manned for them. Mr. Mayor, I don't know what to say about this. 25% of the elderly population represents the deaths here.
Well, Sean, this would be an example of the left hand not knowing what the right hand is doing. The mayor and the governor, as far as I could tell, met for the first time about 2 days ago. Well, that's just horrible, because the only way you can manage something like this is as a unit. From the moment 9/11 happened, in fact, from the moment that I escaped from the place that we were trapped, I called the governor, and Governor Pataki and I were partners for the next 3 months. We had our staff meetings together. We made our decisions together. This whole idea that their bodies, a couple of dozen bodies were discovered, outside of a funeral home, rotting for 2 or 3 weeks. And one of the first things we anticipated were the number of body bags and funeral directors we would need, and then we found out we wouldn't need many because, unfortunately, the bodies disintegrated. So then we immediately began a DNA situation. But we had prepared for this. We had had at least 8 or 10 drills over the last 6, 7 years to prepare for tragedies and for crises and for anthrax and for sarin gas. I would wonder how many such preparations de Blasio did in his time as mayor.
But Mr. Mayor, look at what Ron DeSantis did.
He doesn't know what he doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't seem to know what he's doing. He says the dumbest things. The other day, he condemned a group of Jewish people who were too close together at a funeral, condemning the entire Jewish community. Meanwhile, there's a picture of him. There's a picture of him standing with a bunch of city workers who are all close together and violating his laws that he's going to give out summonses for, and he's not wearing a mask.
You know what's going to happen?
He doesn't know what he's doing, Sean.
Mr. Mayor, they're leaving.
And he never called. He never called for advice. He never called for advice.
Yeah,
never once.
Okay. Very proud. I've been working on my book, Live Free or Die, America and World on the Brink. You can get a gift certificate from Mom, special bound first edition. Be a good gift for Mother's Day. Have a great week.